Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for being here. Hi, Nicholas.
Hi.
We're not quite ready for you, but if you stand by, you're welcome to wait with us while I go through the, oops, there he goes. Let me say first, that tune and the dance that goes with it is Mr. Prentice's Maggot. The composer and choreographer is Nicolas Broadbridge, our guest, who you just saw a moment ago. The musicians are Aidan Broadbridge and Brian Prentice. It's from a private recording. The CD that I believe you can find it on is Old World New Dances, and we're posting where you can buy it direct from Nicolas. I am Darlene Hamilton. We are the Historical Tea and Dance Society, and on our team we have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program. She's handling media and attendee questions and all sorts of other things that go on in the background. And Reed Wilson is with us on Zoom, and he's posting things and grabbing those questions that you all are posting there. And Larry Hansen is monitoring Facebook Live, the chat box for questions and also posting. So obviously we're letting you know that that chat box is very important. You want to read it, you want to use it because it's a lot of fun dialogue going on. Some of the answers to questions you might have about little snippets of things are in there. And we post a lot of the information that you might need to have for this talk. So please check that, know where it is, get it available so you can read it. Stick around for the after talk because the questions that you post there that we don't get to in this web chat talk, we will be answering or having Nicholas answer for you, I should say, in our after talk. We do post the link for that in the chat box, or if you've already signed up for the event, you got both links. And yes, there was a mistake the first time it went out, sorry. But if you signed up in the last 5 days, you absolutely got the correct link. And the reminder email that went out yesterday was the correct link. And we will have the correct link posted here in the chat. So no worries, we're all getting to the after talk. So let me go into a bio on our guest. Country dancing has been part of Nicolas Broadbridge's life since around 1950. Wow. In the early 1980s, Nicolas formed the Glasgow and Edinburgh Assembly, acting as teacher, musician, and choreographer. Since then, he has taught in many other places, including England, the Netherlands, Germany, and at Berea and Pinewoods here in the States. In 1987, Nicolas formed the Assembly Players, in which he plays accordion, his son Aidan the violin, and Brian Prentice on the piano. The Assembly Players have now recorded, I believe, 21 albums. Among other publications, Nicolas edited a new version of the Folly Broom collection and co-edited with Marjorie Fennessy, Purcell's dancing master. He choreographs and writes new tunes for dances enjoyed around the world. Please welcome Nicolas Broadbridge, live from Scotland. We're so happy to have you with us. And his beautiful sheep in the background, which we'll hear more about in the after talk, I think. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's jump right into the things. Thing number one, my life in country dancing.
Well, this is just a boring list of dates, really. Starts in 1950, when my mother went to some American square dance classes in the local tennis club, which were run by a visiting American lady, and she thoroughly enjoyed them. But the next winter when she went along, the lady had gone back to the States, so there were no more American square dance classes available. So she looked around and found that a lady called Muriel Thompson ran English country dance classes in the evenings. So she took to going to them. And in 1953 or thereabouts, she took me along. She said I was frightfully enthusiastic and absolutely terrible. So, yes. I got very involved in it. I loved it. I really did. And I think I improved fairly quickly. And by 1956, I was attending an evening class in Guildford, which was about 12 miles away, that Miss Thompson also ran. And there was a lady called Mrs. Montgomery, who was the pianist. Now, these were evening classes that were paid for by the Education Authority, and they stopped always at Easter. So in the summer, Muriel Thompson ran the classes privately, and we went round various people's gardens and danced in the gardens on the grass. I should explain this is in the south of England, where the grass is short and the ground is dry and hard, so it wasn't any great hardship. And for those, Mrs. Montgomery used an accordion, which she referred to as her squeezy. And I was terribly taken with this. And she said, well, if you get yourself an accordion and you learn how it works, I will then teach you to play for dancing. So she did that. Now, I was at school in London by this stage, and I used to visit Cecil Sharp House quite not infrequently, just to go and see what was going on or what was to be had in the shop, which was run by a lady called Rosemary Webb, who always greeted me very nicely and said, oh, I'm glad to see you. I've got this nice new record. You must listen to it, you know. And these were private recordings made by the Society. And while I was there, I met Douglas Kennedy and Sybil Lightfoot, who was his ADC, I suppose you might say. And that was Sybil of Sybil's Au Revoir. 1960-61, I was working in the Botanic Gardens in Cambridge, and I joined the Cambridge Morris Men and the Round Country Dance Club, which is the University Country Dance Club in Cambridge. And the pianist there was a lady called Grace North, Mrs. Grace North. Now, if you look in the introduction to Maggot Pie, the book, you will find a pianist there credited, and her name was Miss Ludman. Well, Miss Ludman became Mrs. Grace North. So, and Miss Ludman had played for all the rehearsal sessions and trial sessions when they were working out the dances in Maggot Pie. And if you look at the date in that book, which I haven't done recently, I think it's about 1934 or something. So you're going quite a long way back. By 1962, I was back in Surrey and going to the Cobham Evening Institute, which was where Muriel Thompson had run the evening classes for years. And at that point, she gave up. And we had a teacher came in called Reg Richings, and I offered to play for the classes. Well, that was fine. And he came one winter and spring. And then the next September, we went along, we all foregathered, and there was no sign of Reg Richings. And I went along to see the head of the institute, and he said, oh dear, could you hold the fort this evening and I'll see what's happening? So I said, I suppose so. So that was the first time I ever taught a class. And of course I was playing as well. So it was quite exciting, I suppose. The following week, Mr. Withy came along to me and said, look, Mr. Richings is not coming back. If you teach and play, I will pay you both wages. So who was I to say no? In 1960, and I did that for a number of years, 1966, I was invited to go and dance with the Whirligigs, which were Marjorie Fennis's demonstration team, at Broadstairs Folk Week, which was the first folk festival they ever held in Broadstairs. And they were doing, the Whirligigs were going to do a wedding pictured by country dances, doing country dances to depict a wedding. And they lacked a best man. And my great friend Anthony Haywood got in, who was a member of Whirligigs, said to Marjorie, you know, Nicolas Broadbridge, who was best man at my wedding, he could do this. So I went along and had a lovely week, danced with Brenda Godrich all week, which was great. And after that said, was there any chance I could continue with the Whirligigs? And Marjorie Fennessy said, oh, certainly, you're very welcome. So I did. So we used to rehearse on Thursday evenings. And there I met Pat Shaw, who used to come in of a Thursday evening sometimes and say, look, I've got this new dance I'm working on, Marjorie. I wondered if you'd like to try it. And Marjorie would say, yes. Well, Pat, you go and have a cup of tea downstairs and we'll have a go at this dance and see how it goes. So as soon as he was out of the room, she would say, right, come on, chaps, let's have a go. And anything that is awkward, you know, tell me about it. So when we went down to join Pat at tea, Marjorie would say to him, "Now, Pat, we've got one or two little points we thought might be helpful to know. There's a turn there to the right and we think it would work better to the left," and so on. He always accepted it. He was wonderful. So, and during that time, he was running his Another Look at Playford Mondays, once a month, the first Monday of the month. And that was where I met Elsie Averill and Everald of Jersey, because they quite often played for him. 1969, I got married. Pat Shaw arranged 2 pieces of music for our wedding. We had a country dance party after the wedding, after we'd had lunch, of course. And we did, among other things, Rose of Tankerton, which was Pat's new dance that year. And we went to Yorkshire for honeymoon, straight from the wedding, and straight from Yorkshire to Scotland, where I'd got a job on the west coast of Scotland as a head gardener. So that was 69, and we had nothing more to do with English country dance for 13 years. 1982, we were by then living in just outside Lanark in the Clyde Valley, which is southeast of Glasgow. And we bumped into a lady that my wife Nell knew, who had started a thing called the Civic Trust in Lanark. And she said, "Oh, we're having a Georgian evening. You should come along." And we blithely said, "Well, if you're having a Georgian evening, we ought to do some Georgian dances for you." Oh dear. Went home and said, "Well, you know, what on earth have we suggested? We don't have any dancers or anything." So we got on to a lady that I'd had some contact with in historical dance, a lady by the name of Junella Mackay, and said, "You know, could you do this? And have you any other suggestions?" And to cut a long story short, we got a team of 8 people together, including the 2 of us. And I put together 2 suites of 7 dances each, which is what Pat used to do. He used to do suites of dances, which we did in whirligigs, and it was lovely. And we did 2 demos that evening. And one of the ladies who was dancing said, "Look, if I were to provide a venue, could you provide music and teach dances in Glasgow?" And I said, "Yes, I suppose so." So that was the start of the Glasgow Assembly. That was 1982. In 1983, we were running it ourselves because she'd gone to Bolivia or Brazil or somewhere with her husband. And we decided we would have a ball in the summer. So on the 18th of June, 1983, we had our first ball in Queen's Cross Church Hall in Glasgow. Now, Queen's Cross Church is a church designed by Charles Rennie Mackintosh. And if you don't know anything about Charles Rennie Mackintosh, look him up. All right. So that was our first ball. We had 46 people at it, believe it or not. And this is the moment at which I'm going to ask Lindsay to put on the first video, which is of the last turn of Haydn Röslein, Pat Shaw's square dance to the tune. And 2 of the people dancing, this was only videoed very recently, 2 of the people dancing are original members of the Glasgow Assembly. Well, that's Haydn Röslein. I should say that those are just 8 members of the Glasgow Assembly. They are not in any way a demonstration team. And they were just dancing that evening, and I thought it looked rather good, so I decided I'd video the 4th turn. 1990, we had some tryout workshops in Edinburgh on Sunday afternoons, 2 of them, because by 1990, we were getting too many people coming across from Edinburgh once a month to Glasgow, and we were getting crowded out in the hall. So we started the Edinburgh Assembly in September that year, 1990. And that was that. 1991, we made a trip to the States, my son and I. We went to New York area, Kentucky and North Carolina. That was in the company with Fred Park, Jacqueline Schwab, and Stephanie Smith. And we did various gigs and things. Then we had our first workshop weekend in 1993, which was taught by Marjorie Fennessy. And we had one day in Glasgow and one in Edinburgh. And here's a bit of video, Lindsay, of a much later workshop. Watch the lady with the white top half and the grey trousers. And I'll tell you about her in a minute. She has white hair. She's dancing with her husband in blue. Yes, well, that is Norma Battle. And she was taught by Molly Duquesne, who was one of Cecil Sharp's teachers. So I just thought you would like to see that. We had workshops. We've run 27 workshop weekends taught by Marjorie Fennessy, Brenda Godrich, Andrew Shaw, Pat Wilkinson, Jean Murrow, Simone Verheyen, and Bernie Culkin. 1994, we made a silver wedding trip to the USA, and we took Aidan and Brian with us so that we had the band, and we did gigs, which was the way we financed the trip, basically. We did gigs in Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Kentucky. 1995, I was invited to Pinewoods to teach at English American Week and English Week, which was lovely. And that same year, we went to Holland just after Christmas for the Christmas course run by the Dutch Folk Dance Society that does English country dance. And we were there as a band, and I was teaching. 1999, 01 and 02, we were invited to English Scottish session at Pinewoods. Alas, no longer working. Very sad, sad loss. The first year, 1999, I was teaching, and then 01 and 02, I was asked to lead the band for the English section. 2008, we were invited to Florida to run a ball in Fort Myers, a day of dance in Atlanta, Georgia, and we did sessions in Jacksonville and Gainesville. And in 2011, we were invited to California. I was asked to run the Bay Area Country Dance Society Fall Ball, and we did a Purcell Ball there and various other gigs. I've run 36 balls in Scotland, and one dance in 2001 when foot and mouth was raging and we didn't want anybody coming up over the border and bringing it north. Abroad, I've run balls in Holland, Greenville, South Carolina, Fort Myers, Florida, Bay Area, California, and Berea, Kentucky. I've taught in Holland, Germany, and the USA, as well as the UK. And I've run balls in the UK in Darlington, Cheltenham, Oxford, Cecil Sharp House, Manchester, Lichfield, and of course, Scotland. I've taught or played at festivals in Eastbourne, Chippenham, Broadstairs, Sidmouth, Whitby, and Lichfield. Here's a short clip of the Cheltenham Ball when we ran it, and the dance's alterations. That ball takes place every year in the Pitfield Pump Room in Cheltenham, which is a very beautiful 18th century, it might be early 19th century hall. Lovely, like an assembly rooms. Where did I get to? Yes, well, just to mention the people that I've met and known through my life from the older generation, I mentioned Douglas and Helen Kennedy. Helen Kennedy and her sister Maud Carpelese, Sybil Lightfoot, Kathleen Bliss and Elsie Whiteman of the Ben Acre Band. Now they were K and E of the dance of that name. Also in the band was the pianist Isabel Bedlington, and also Cecil Sharp's older daughter, Joan Sharp. She played the drums and she was an extremely good drummer. I knew all the quartet, Elsie Averill, Everall de Jersey, Willie Ganiford on the fiddle, and Isabel Bedlington, pianist. I knew Olive McNamara, who taught, one of the McNamara sisters. Director of music at school was Arnold Foster, whose name you may not know, but he did the piano arrangements for the EFDS New Series #1 volume. And he was Vaughan Williams' favorite pupil. So I got to know Vaughan Williams and his wife, Ursula Vaughan Williams, Pat Shaw, of course, Nan Fleming Williams, and Rolf Gardner. If you don't know who Rolf Gardner was, look him up. That's about all I've got to say about my life in country dance.
Wow, well, that's quite an impressive list. And I look forward to talking to you about some questions that came up and some other things about that list when we get into the after talk. For now, we're going to move on to thing number 2. Music and ball programs.
Well, now, music. I firmly believe that the band controls the dancers. You can make them dance fast or slowly, obviously. You can lift them off the floor, or you can persuade them to dance smoothly and fairly flat on the floor. But when I play, I always play as a dancer. And as an example of that, here's the beginning of Joy After Sorrow. Sorry, little notice. Yes, that's Joy After Sorrow. Some years ago, I got hold of a little book of dances composed by Imogen Holst, Gustav Holst, the composer's daughter. Incidentally, I did know her because I used to dance with her every year at Thaxted, at the Morris Weekend in Thaxted. We always had a country dance party in the Vicarage Garden on the Sunday afternoon. I always did a dance with Imogen, so there you go. But I discovered among this little collection of dances that she'd used tunes of existing dances and composed simple dances basically for children to them. And one of the tunes she'd used was that tune, Joy After Sorrow. So, music, very important, starts and finishes. We do various things to start and finish dances. Chords are important to us at the end of a dance. That might be Scottish influence, but when Nell and I were young, years and years ago, sort of back in the dark ages when the dinosaurs were roaming, most of the recordings for English country dances had a chord at the beginning and end. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Introductions, yes, we do introductions. Sometimes we end with a rallentando to a placed chord. That's where you slow down and then place the chord very carefully. Occasionally we do what we call a snapshot end, which is where you go full speed up to the end with a chord bang. What we do, especially with jigs, is what we call a sniff bonk chord, which is you come to the end of the tune, you sniff, which is one beat, and then you play a strong chord. Very, very occasionally on the odd recording we've made, you'll find a hanging ending where there is no chord, the tune stops, and that's it. If we were playing live, we quite often like to do a big wind up to the last B music. And there's a wind up to a finish here on the recording we made of the Fair Quaker of Deal. You might listen to the pianist particularly. That's an example of a sniff bonk chord. Improvisation, yes. Improvisation is absolutely fine, but we insist that you must have the tune at all times strongly played by one or other instrument, usually two in our case, because there were three of us. British dancers like a strong beat and a clear tune. So I suppose that's the way I grew up dancing to music. That's the way it was played. And I suppose I'm very old fashioned, but I still play for country dances the way I learnt to play for them in the 1960s. I usually look at originals before we record and sometimes find that other recordings have been made not in the original key. Two examples I can think of were Lady Pentsweasel's Maggot, which was recorded in G, and in fact it was originally in B flat, and Wakefield Hunt, which was recorded in G, and I discovered that the original key was A. So when we recorded Wakefield Hunt, we started in G and then changed up to A, which gives the dancers a great big lift and is quite exciting. The reason those two were recorded in G were that the band who recorded them before had a melodionist who wanted to play those two tunes, and he had a GD melodion. I like a grand finish live sometimes, and there's a grand finish at our last ball, I think it was, the last ball we did in 2019. And this is a tune called Au Revoir, written for a great friend of ours, David, who died when he shouldn't have done at the age of 73. And Simon Verheyen composed a dance for him, and I wrote a tune. And this tune is called David, and the dance is called Au Revoir. And Aidan and Brian played this at the ball, and listen to the finish, it's great. Okay, ball programs. Whenever I've been running a ball, I almost always issue the instructions for all the dances in advance so that people can mug them up. I like to keep calling to an absolute minimum at a ball because I want people to dance to the music and not some guy shouting at them from the stage. I usually put 21 dances into a ball program, which say starts at 7:30 and finishes at 11. The first half, I like to do 12 dances and the second half 9. I make a list of the dances that I might consider for the ball in advance, and then I draw up a chart and I put the formations across the top and the time signatures, the different time signatures down the side. And I write all the keys of the various tunes against the titles I've got, and then start to make up a program from that. And I always start with an easy long ways because latecomers can join in if they want to, if they're, and then I like to do a fairly easy second dance. And then I like to start on the meat, as it were. But I also need to know what the interval dance is going to be. So here's a dance that I might put in the first half. It's called the Great Turk. It's a discovery of Pat Shaw's, and it's an endless dance that never stops. So that's the Great Turk. It's great fun, but it does go on without a pause anywhere. So yes, I choose the interval dance. The interval dance needs to be carefully chosen, not a set dance, needs to be a long ways dance for me. And then I work backwards usually and sort of fill in from either side. And that the interval dance is number 12. Second half, choose the final dance. That's very important. The last dance you're going to have of the evening. And then start the second half with a gentle dance after the interval and a few of the more meaty dances, and then start winding down to the last dance with easier, sometimes older dances that are very well known. Changes of formation, time signature, and key are all important. Key changes need to be comfortable as well. So you can go from G to D to C to F to B flat to A. Those are all major keys, but you can use relative minors. So you could go from G to E minor, and that is helpful in changing the sequence a bit. Chord sequences are particularly important to me when I'm programming a CD, as I like to think people will listen to our CDs as music when they're not dancing to them. So key changes and rhythm changes are particularly important. Sometimes this leads to a slight alteration from the ball program that we're recording, because of our 21 CDs, 11 were the programs of our annual balls. Dancing at our 36 balls, we've had people from the USA, Japan, Russia, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, Australia, France, Germany, Canada, and England. At our ordinary monthly meetings in Glasgow and Edinburgh, we've had visits, very surprisingly, I was just thinking back, from Ted Sonella and his wife, Scott Higgs, Keith Murphy, Fred Park, Stephanie Smith, and probably others. That's all I've got to say about music.
Okay, moving on to thing number 3.
Well, recording, yes. Well, the assembly players started, I reckon, in 1989, not 1987. And we started originally as a Scottish ceilidh band. Brian first played with me and Aidan in 1988 at Nell's birthday party, which was the occasion, incidentally, when I produced the waltz that is going to finish this section of the evening. And he played, he was sat down at a keyboard and we said, right, play Walpole Cottage with us, of all things. So he did. And then at the Glasgow Assembly monthly meeting in April 1991, we invited him to play again because Fred Park was going to be there and Fred had met him. Aidan played one or two dances at the third ball we ran in 1985. He was then 11, and he played many turns of the Punch Bowl, which was quite a test for an 11-year-old. Brian first played at the ball in 1991 when we had a big band. We had 3 fiddlers, an accordion, a keyboard and a piano. And Aidan and Brian first played as a duo on their own at our ball in 1994. Aidan and Brian have each missed only one ball. Our first recording was made in 1993, having done our first themed ball that year, which was a Walsh ball. We've never recorded in a studio, never recorded on separate tracks. All our recordings we played as a band with close microphones on the instruments. Our first 3 recordings were made on minidisc, but after that recording was on computer. Ensemble playing has been very important, and generally speaking, we very often recorded a whole dance in a take. We treated each tune individually and we would try different starts and finishes and solos. Here's a start and a finish of Nampwich Fair. Well, that's a Sniff Bonk chord, isn't it? Yes. The next one shows how we sometimes do rather different introductions. It's a dance called Oswestry New Bells. It's a Kynaston dance. Nathaniel Kynaston, we don't know much about, but he obviously lived on the border between Shropshire and Wales and probably in Oswestry. So, Lindsay, if you like to play that, please. We always considered the nature of each tune and the dance that went with it. Periodically, Brian from the piano would say to me, what are the dancers actually doing at this point, Nicholas? And we would discuss it and I would demonstrate because he's not a dancer. He plays for Scottish Ballet as their pianist regularly, all the time. Anyway, an example of the nature of tune and dance. Here is a dance called St. Giles Gate. Now, the reason, no, I think I'll ask Lindsay just to play this bit first. Now, that's an odd way, probably, you think, of playing a jig for a country dance. But the reason for that is that that tune and dance were composed by a chap called Norris Winston, who was the melodionist for Kemp's Morris Men in Norwich. And I had a chat with him when he was very elderly, when we were about to record that. And I phoned him up and talked to him about it, because he'd won a prize for the dance when the EFDSS had a competition to mark one of their anniversaries. I don't remember which anniversary it was. And he said, oh, yes, yes, yes. He played it with a heavy swing. So I hope you feel that I achieved a heavy swing there, because that's what I tried to do. We also considered the original composer's speeds, or the composer's original speeds for dances. And I have to tell you that Walpole Cottage was originally recorded under Pat's aegis at 136 beats per minute. We only managed about 132, but that is a lot faster than most people do the dance today. I own Pat Shaw's accordion, which is a Galanti Super Dominator, which was built in 1952. And it was very interesting. When I got his accordion, his tunes suddenly became much easier to play on that instrument. Now, I have no idea why. It's really quite spooky to think about, but I've always found that I can play tunes on Pat's accordion that I can't play on other accordions. So here is a quick bit of Sybil's Au Revoir at the sort of speed that we used to do it years and years ago. I don't know what speed you do now in the States, but this is the way we used to do it in England. Yep. So that's Sybil's Au Revoir at a fairly old-fashioned speed. Two examples of quiet starts and finishes which we felt were suitable to the two dances and tunes. Here's Lady in the Dark, which is one of Cecil Sharp's Playford transcriptions. And I should have said that we started that tune like that with me playing solo. And so we thought we would finish it like that. And we did the same with Roundabout Our Coal Fire. Here is the start of Roundabout Our Coal Fire, I think, Lindsay. Yes, that's the end of that section, darling. So, yeah.
Great. Well, before you move on, or before we move on, I believe we have a question.
That we do. Bruce, if you're ready, you're more than welcome to turn on your camera.
Oh, Lord. Hello, Bruce.
Hello, Nicholas. You said that I think you said that you never recorded in a studio. And I'm
Oh.
just curious about where you did record.
Oh, in church halls or in people's living rooms. And I should have said that we always recorded, with one exception. We made one Scottish Ceilidh recording CD, and that we used a keyboard for, but every single other recording we used a grand piano.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
So we had to find a grand piano each time.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce.
Wow, that must have been amazing sound recording in church halls and such, if they were the older churches with those beautiful wood walls and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. All right, we're going to move on to thing number 4, but I was curious about the recording too. So thing number 4, teaching dancing.
Just as an adjunct to Bruce's question, the reason we never recorded in a recording studio originally was that I had once been taken into a recording studio by a band that I was playing in, and I was absolutely freaked out by the experience. I hated it so much. I vowed I would never do it again. And then, of course, because we recorded on single tracks, there was no possibility of boosting one instrument against another or anything. So what you hear on all of our CDs, all our recordings, is the dynamic that we achieved playing live when we were recording. There was no fiddling about with the balance afterwards. Teaching dancing, yes, working with a partner in a demonstration team. When I danced with whirligigs, and Brenda was my partner. That's an exceptional situation where you have a partner and you dance with that partner always in demonstrations. You don't dance with anybody else. And that's a lovely, lovely, lovely thing to do, because you learn to, it's like a marriage, you learn to work with each other in a way that doesn't often happen otherwise. But English country dancing, and this is me talking, and lots of people may disagree with this, but I believe that English country dancing is a social activity, and generally we like to change partners after each dance, even at a ball. This is the way it was done when Nell and I were young. If you go to balls in the south of England, quite often you'll find people go with a partner and they dance with nobody else all evening. Well, I don't think that's right, but never mind. The most important thing when teaching dance is to persuade the dancers to listen to the music and put their feet down on the beat. Also, to learn the dance and not rely on it being called all the time. In a way, this grew out of my having to play as well as teach, and it's tricky doing both at the same time, playing the tune and trying to gobble words out at the same time. And our dancers at the Edinburgh and Glasgow Assembly are very used to this, and they help any visitors who are bemused by the lack of calling, because I teach a dance and they walk it through and I say, okay, right, now you can dance it. And people who've come from, you know, the south or somewhere, help, I don't know how to do this. Yeah, so that's what happens. Here's a quick clip from the Cheltenham Workshop the morning after the ball that I called, of which you saw a clip alterations earlier. The dance is the Berkshire Tragedy, and it's great fun. If you've never done the Berkshire Tragedy, which is by Pat Shaw, you should have a go at it. We did record it, so you can get a recording of it. Yes, that's the Berkshire Tragedy. It's great fun. People find it difficult, and I've never discovered why. I think it's very straightforward, but there you are. Dance technique involves various things. The most important thing about dance technique, I think, is carriage of the body. And then there's punctuation by getting your feet together, and varying the steps in a dance. So you don't walk all the way through. If you're doing for instance, a figure of 8 or a half figure of 8, you might choose to do some kind of a double step or a skipping step or something like that, just to break up the monotony. Movement, body carriage, is done by moving the body's weight first. and letting the feet follow. And there is no recorded instance of anybody ever leaving their feet behind. Say to people, you know, get your weight forward, let the body take you forward. Talking about teaching, walking through, and then dancing through. Here's a clip of a dance called Simone Says by a, I think she's, well, she's Belgian. I think she's Belgian lady, Toos Heesakers. And it's a dance called Simone Says, which refers to Simone Verheyen. And it's to a tune that Pat Shaw composed that we recorded without a dance. And she liked the tune so much, she composed this dance to it. Now, I should say, I taught the dance at the Glasgow Assembly. They walked it through. They danced it all through once. It's a 4 times through dance. And then I said, right, now do it again. I'm not going to call, I'm going to video. So here's one turn of the video.
Set. Haze across. Into a square. Reels. Middles.
Yes, what I didn't tell you in advance, and I meant to tell you, was that the lady with white hair is actually virtually blind. And we've had quite a lot to do with blind people dancing over the years. And she has come along to the assembly and joined in as a normal dancer, and it's absolutely great. Dancing slowly requires special poise and balance. And here's a little clip of the recruiting officer published by John and William Neal in Dublin in 1736. And it's done very slowly. Yeah, just one thing about that. I don't know if you noticed, but there was a change of step at 1 or 2 points in that dance. Right, now we have to move on because I'm running out of time, I believe.
And that's okay. We're going to run a few minutes late. I just want everyone to know, but we're going to take thing number 3 and take our time with it. It'll be great. Thing number 5.
5, yeah.
Research, compose. Now I'm messing up. Research, composing, and publishing. Very important.
Early 1994, Marjorie Fennessy reminded me that the tercentenary of Purcell's death was coming up in 1995. And we all knew that we did 1 or 2 dances with tunes by Purcell. And she suggested we should mark it by including 1 or 2 of those dances in the program of our ball in 95. This started me off on a huge investigation to find dances to tunes by Henry Purcell. And I found 32, which had been published in the 17th and 18th centuries. and 16 modern compositions to tunes by him. So in July 95, we had a Purcell Ball in Edinburgh, and we repeated it down in Gloucester on November 25th that year, which was the eve of the anniversary of Purcell's funeral. My book, Purcell's Dancing Master, which Marjorie gave me a lot of help with, was published in 1997, in which year we again had 2 Purcell balls. One was in Edinburgh and one in Gloucester again. And we called those balls Purcell Encore, by the way. For the book, I checked the Purcell Society editions of all the tunes, especially those for the old dances, and I found interesting changes in several of them had been made from Purcell's original. Three examples of that are Enfield Common, St. Martin's Lane, and the Kit Kat Club. And if you get a chance to look at the book, you can see, because I put facsimiles of all the old dances in the book, you can see the country dance versions of the tunes, although I publish and recommend that people use Purcell's originals. With Brian's help, I transcribed the harmonies in the Purcell Society editions because they had been realized from Purcell's bass lines. And I got permission from the various modern composers to include their dances, agreeing the wording of the instructions with them, because of course I had to make sure that the instructions fitted in with the instructions in the rest of the book. Tom Cook gave me a lot of help in sorting out the various editions of the 17th and 18th century dance publications. And Anthony Hayward did the typesetting for the book for me. And I should say, in parenthesis, I am at the moment, with Anthony's help, preparing a second edition of the book, which will include 21 extra dances, all modern compositions, one of them being Philippe Callan's last composition. I composed tunes at the piano myself, just by sitting down with the right hand and trying odd bits of phrasing. And when I'm satisfied that I have a tune, I set to compose a dance to it, but the tune always comes first. I was persuaded by my friend Norman Bett in Cambridge, lovely accordionist and fiddler, to publish a little book of my own dances because he'd been sketching out 1 or 2 piano arrangements to my tunes. So he did piano arrangements for all the, I think there are 8 dances in the book, and he typeset it, and it was published in 1994 under the title The Assembly Dances. In about 2007, I was asked to prepare a fresh edition of Bernard Bentley's Fallibrum collection, and that involved researching all the dances and getting facsimiles of them if I possibly could. Instructions I reworded for modern use and provided chords for all the music with Brian's help, because Bernard hadn't done that at all. And I also included Bernard Bentley's Fallibrum Garden, which is a set of 12 dances he composed to a set of contredanses by Beethoven. I was also asked by Anthony Hayward to provide chords for a new edition he was preparing of New Wine in Old Bottles. Then the same for English or Double Dutch, an NVS publication with dances by Cor Hogendijk. His next project was a new edition of Hollanders Seen in the English Country Dance, which were dances that had been researched by Pat Shaw, which had titles reminiscent of something in the Netherlands. I helped with the cording of that, and I was sent a number of facsimiles of the originals by Kitty Keller from her private film collection. She was always very supportive with anything I was doing. I also helped with the cording of some of the tunes in Anthony's 2 books of dances, which are An Enchanted Place and Dance to the Music of Time. I'd like to summarize what I feel I've achieved and what I hope to be remembered for afterwards. And this sounds big-headed, and it's not intended to. I composed and published the Assembly Dances, researched and published the full collection of dances to tunes by Henry Purcell, Purcell's Dancing Master, and prepared a complete new edition of Bernard Bentley's The Fallibrum collection for the EFDSS to publish. The most important thing I suppose I've done is to have run and taught the 2 assembly groups in Scotland for 38 years. Finally must come the band, the assembly players, and the 21 albums we've recorded, but above all, the satisfaction and pleasure we had playing together for 28 years. I count myself gratefully privileged to have played so long with two such fine musicians as Aidan Broadbridge and Brian Prentice, and they will be playing this part of Five Things Out with Nell's Waltz. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, wow. What, thank you, thank you. It's been wonderful having you on, and I'm really looking forward to the after talk where we have a lot of questions that came up and that people want to ask about. And we are going to say a little bit about the new edition of the Purcell Dancing Master at the very end. First, I need to get through some housekeeping. We're going to post Nicholas's website and the Assembly Players website specific page. And Nicholas did say if you want music and books to please email him, not just jump into PayPal and send them, because it's much better for him where he is in the situation to just email him directly, and you all can sort that out. There is a lot of great stuff there. There was a lot. So make sure you check out those websites. What is your favorite dance? You have one.
It's very, very difficult to answer that question. It has to be something in 3/2 time. If I'm playing, without question, it's probably Mr. Isaac's Maggot. I could play the tune all day and all night. For dancing, I don't know, one of maybe Mr. Beveridge's Maggot, or I don't know, Joy After Sorrow or something like that. It's definitely in triple time.
Those are great dances. And yes, I think a lot of us are getting stuck on that question for sure, but it's always nice to hear. Well, thank you, Nicholas, for being our guest. And thank you to my Five Things team, Lindsay Verbal, and in the background, Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, along with our helpers, Kara King and Dan Vilter. Thank you so much. Colin Hugh maintains that accessible index of all our web chats on his website in one place, so you can go there and see all the ones we've had on since March 2020. So many. Yeah, more than 45 that I wrote in my notes. So a big thank you to everyone who's been sending in donations to our group, the Historical Tea and Dance Society. It's very appreciated, as there are operational expenses. And we have a new thing. We decided, because, you know, these times, they are not going to last forever, and we wanted to create a commemorative pin. You've seen on a couple of us. It's a fundraiser. There are two ways to receive it. One is signing up with PayPal for a monthly donation of $5 or more. That way we don't have to worry about where those finances are coming from, or a one-time donation of $30 or more. We figured that's about, I don't know, do we have 6 months left? I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But folks who are already on a monthly plan will receive a pin as a gift, and all our speakers are going to receive a pin as a gift. So there's only a limited quantity available. We hope you'll join us in wearing our pin. Oh, somebody said last time I should hold it up really closely. So I'll just take a moment to do that. There it is, our Five Things pin.
Right. Can I jump in here a moment and say that the badge I am wearing may not be familiar to people, but I would like to mention it. It's the gold badge of the English Folk Dance and Song Society, which is presented to people who have done unusual service to folk dance or song. And I was presented with it in 2017. It's a longsword lock, as you can see, and it is solid gold.
Wow, that's amazing, and certainly well deserved. And I'm so thankful somebody actually had mentioned it in the chat box. I'm so glad you took a moment to call that out. So well deserved. I am such a huge fan of your music, and we've danced to it many times at our group, which the dance classes use recordings. So thank you for making all those recordings. We are posting the After Talk link now so you can come in and join us. The chat, if you are not able to copy it and save it, we have a Dropbox folder. If you can get to one thing, get to that Dropbox folder. And we're posting the link now. If you register, you get the link for that. Let me tell you quickly, coming up next Tuesday, February 23rd, it's for the United States audience. It's the middle of the night for those of you in UK, but we have Karen Axelrod on our weekly 5 Things Inside the Dancing Mind show, and we're posting a link for that. If you are in the States, on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have a tea time social hour. We're posting the link for that. And now let me say, because it is a little tricky sending, we can't just easily send money through PayPal without lots of expenses. The Historical Tea and Dance Society is going to do a special thing. If you want to donate to Nicholas's goal to republish the Purcell Dancing Master book, use the donation on our website and you'll see a note box. Please make sure you write in Nicolas Broadbridge or Purcell's Dancing Master. We are going to be gathering the funds and sending them forward to him in just one single bank draft. So we're posting the link for that. The exit music is the beautiful Nels Waltz that he wrote for his wife. It's composer, choreographer Nicolas Broadbridge. And of course, the musicians are Aidan Broadbridge and Brian Prentice. The assembly dances. And you can buy all his CDs and books, all the assembly player CDs and books on his website. We will see you all in 2 minutes in the After Talk. And looking forward to more. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.